Welcome to the Banega Swasth India podcast. Our focus is on creating a holistic and healthy India for each and everyone. Our goal is Sampurna Swasthya, or as we call it, Lakshay Sampurna Swasthya ka, where citizens, individuals, society and governments work together to ensure health for all. Here comes the special video where we're going to talk about a special initiative which is called Love in the Times of Climate Change. Sounds interesting? Yes, it is. You will hear a lot of poetry in this special video. So it's a collaboration between CEEW, that's Council on Energy, Environment and Water, and UnErase Poetry, that's a poetry community based out of Mumbai. So they are creating special poems to create awareness about climate change and sustainability. It's a 7-week initiative. So 7 poets, 7 poems for 7 weeks. That's phenomenal. The aim was that people should accept the conversation about climate change in an interesting and artistic way. And let me tell you, it's a good news that they are achieving the goal that they started with. So with us to start the conversation is Alina Sain. She is the Senior Communication Specialist and Archivist at CEEW. Very warm welcome. Thank you so very much joining us, Alina. Now, we definitely start with asking, how did this initiative really start?
Hey, Arun. I think with all great stories, you can sort of identify one single meeting or one single event where it all sparked off. So I would think that this goes back a year from now. We were talking, we had just created a scientific report, 168 pages for Stockholm Plus 50. Unlocking a better future is what it was about. The entire world was getting together for the conference in Stockholm, and we had co-authored this report. The idea was, here is a scientific report. How are we going to get the science out there in a way that is the opposite of 168 pages? And I think from there, our team at CEEW, we are the outreach team, our task is to look at ways in which we can supplement and complement research, the research messages, in a way that we don't not only reach out to people in policy, but people like you and me, our families, our children, our neighbors. From there, in this search, performance poetry emerged as one of the most trending forms of communication that a lot of the youth were engaging with. We connected with a very, very up and coming poet, Simar Singh. And so it was Simar and the outreach team, all of us sitting and talking, said, we need to sort of leverage this platform. What else can we do to, connect with the youth? Because climate change is here and now. And so Love in the Times of Cholera, we all know, is Marquez's, award-winning novel. And I think one of us, our colleagues, it just spurred, this is what synapses happen, right? Like when you brainstorm, he said, I think we should do something which is Love in the Times of Climate Change. And Simar from UnErase said, that's exactly something we should try. So this is how it all goes back. Young poets, very enthusiastic, to want to talk about climate in their language. And through think tanks like us, that's music to our ears, literally.
Joining us now is India's one of the most popular and loved storytellers and poets, Priya Malik. A very warm welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
And, such a good cause. And I'm sure you've done magic with your art. So before we start talking about it, we would love to hear your poem.
Sounds good. I will read out a little excerpt for you. तुम पूछते हो मुझसे कि क्या तुम्हारे लिए मेरा प्रेम कभी बदलेगा? वैज्ञानिकों का कहना है कि अगले 100 साल तक पृथ्वी पर सब कुछ बदल जाएगा। ज्यादा बर्फ पिघलेगी, महासागर बढ़ेंगे, कहीं गर्मी बढ़ेगी, कहीं सर्द हवाएं, कहीं बारिश होगी और कहीं सूखा पड़ेगा। कहीं तेज तूफान आ सकता है, समुद्र बदल सकते हैं, सूरज कम या ज्यादा ऊर्जा भेज सकता है, सब कुछ बदल सकता है। लेकिन तुम्हारे लिए मेरा प्रेम ठीक वैसा ही रहेगा जैसा पृथ्वी को रहना चाहिए। मेरा प्रेम उस बर्फ की तरह है जिसके इंतजार में गर्मियां गुजारी जाती हैं। मेरा प्रेम उस महासागर की तरह है जिसमें इश्क की नदियां मिलाई जाती हैं। मेरे प्रेम की गर्मी सर्द मौसम में चाय के प्याले जैसा काम करेगी। मेरे प्रेम की सर्द हवाएं रेगिस्तान की आंच को भी शीतल बना रखेंगी। मेरे प्रेम की बारिश में तुम बस बूंदों से दोस्ती कर लेना, और सुनो, अगर बाढ़ आ जाए तो मेरे प्रेम की सूखी धरती पर एक बार बस कदम रख लेना। And the rest you have
Beautiful.
to watch on YouTube.
And now we have storyteller and writer Helly Shah with us. Helly, a very warm welcome to this special conversation. And since
Thank
we
you so
have an
much.
artist, we can't have the conversation before we hear the piece from you.
Definitely. So the piece that I've written is called घर कब आओगे, तो आपको सुनाती हूँ। बदलते हैं जमाने, कहानी वही रहती है। बिछड़ते हैं दीवाने, दीवानगी वही रहती है। सन 2030 अपने प्रेमी से मिलने को बेताब एक समंदर धीरे धीरे मंजिल की ओर बढ़ रहा था। तूफान से हाथ मिलाकर वो इस शहर को अपनी बाहों में भर रहा था। हम, मैं और तुम से तब हम हो गए थे। दुनिया के हालात भुलाकर एक दूजे के हम हो गए थे। अब सवेरे की शुरुआत इश्क से होती थी। इश्क हमारी हवा, हमारी रोटी थी। सुना था कभी कि पेट भर जाता है प्रेम में, मन नहीं। जाना तभी कि वक्त कटता है प्रेम बिन, जीवन नहीं। वैसे सबको पता था कि एक वक्त जरूर आएगा कि समुंदर भी अपने प्रेमी से अलग नहीं रह पाएगा। वो पागल दीवाना सब कुछ ध्वस्त कर जाएगा। फिर भी बिना सोचे बिना समझे कि दो प्रेमी को दूर करने का हश्र कितना बुरा होगा, खुद गर्ज हम जीते रहे कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा क्या होगा। उस शाम मैं घर पर अकेली तुम्हारा इंतजार कर रही थी। हर शाम की तरह उस शाम भी खाना तैयार कर रही थी कि खबर मिली कि शहर में आई बाढ़ के कारण हजारों लोग फंस गए हैं। गाड़ी, दुकानें, पशु सभी पानी की कब्र में धंस रहे हैं। मैंने आसमां में बनी हमारी घर की खिड़की से देखा। समुंदर लांग आया था हर बनावटी रेखा। चारों तरफ अंधेरा, हर आवाज में डर था। इंसानों के शहर में इंसानों पर कहर था। तुम ऑफिस से निकलकर सीधा घर आने वाले थे। रोज की तरह आज भी हम साथ खाना खाने वाले थे, मगर अब खाना ठंडा हो चुका था और मेरे हाथ भी दुआ में ले रही थी बस तुम्हारा नाम ही। और तभी तुम्हारा फोन आया। कहाँ हो, घर कब आओगे? तुम खामोश रहे, फिर कहने लगे, क्या तुम्हें याद है हमारी पहली मुलाकात? बहुत महीनों के बाद उस दिन भी बारिश हो रही थी। याद है कैसे समुंदर की लहरें किनारों को चूम रही थी? मैंने तुम्हें बताया नहीं कभी कि तुमसे मिलकर पहली बार ही मैं समझ गया था कि अब मुझे किनारों की जरूरत नहीं होगी। तुमसे मिलता रहूं बेवजह, मेरी हजरत अब से यही होगी। सुनो, तुम घर वापस आओगे ना? खाना तैयार है, साथ बैठकर खाओगे ना? एक लंबी सांस लेकर तुम बोले, आज मुझे थोड़ी देर होगी। तुम खाने पर मेरा इंतजार मत करना। बदलते हैं जमाने, कहानी वही रहती है। बिछड़ते हैं दीवाने, दीवानगी वही रहती है। सन 2023 आज का दिन। इससे पहले कि कुछ ऐसा हो जिसे हम बदल नहीं सकते, अब भी वक्त है तो क्या हम संभल नहीं सकते? हम जो अपने दिलबर की कस्में खाते हैं, किधर जाएंगे जब ठौर ठिकाने इश्क से पहले बिखर जाएंगे? आखिर प्यार की हर जीत आबो हवा से ही पूरी है। जमाना वही है, पर अब कहानी को बदलना जरूरी है। शुक्रिया।
बहुत बढ़िया. I mean, that's the beauty of having a storyteller. immediately teleported us to that time, the havoc that nature could wreak. And now with us is another well-known poet, Amandeep Singh. A very warm welcome, Aman.
Hello, hi, thank you so much.
We're very excited to hear what you've written for this specific topic. Please go ahead.
So sure, I'll start with my piece. तो हिंदी में है ये और पीस का नाम है वो लौट आई। तो कुछ ऐसा है कि बचपन के प्यार वाले वादे अब कौन निभाता है, मौसम जो एक बार जाए तो फिर कहाँ लौट कर आता है। मगर देखो इस दफा मेरे शहर के सावन को और रोशन करने आई है। 13 साल बाद एक शाम वो लड़की अपना वादा निभाने आई है। क्या उसे अभी वो बात याद है, हमारी वो आखिरी मुलाकात याद है, वो उलझी सी लड़की जो मेरी जिंदगी की बहार थी, बचपन का प्यार थी, मेरे शहर में खिलने वाले गुलमोहर की तरह मेरी आंखों का श्रृंगार थी। हर दिन चौराहे पर मिल जाती थी मुझे जहां वो, फिर से वहीं चौंका गई मुझे, न जाने कहां से ई बाइक पर मेरे सामने आ गई वो। देखकर देखकर मुझे वो भी हैरान थी, इसलिए शायद धीरे से उसने मुझे गले लगा लिया और फिर पूछा, सुनो सुनो, स्कूल के पीछे वाले मैदान तक साथ चले क्या, उस आधे टूटे छज्जे के नीचे बैठकर फिर से ख्वाब बुने क्या।
Wow, beautiful, Aman. Thank you so very much for writing this one. Now, you've written on multiple topics. How did you decide on collaborating with CEEW for this one?
So, to be honest, I write on love, life and hope. And मैंने जब ये कविता के बारे में सोचा तो I come from this place called Jamshedpur, which is an industrial city, and people have this myth about that place that क्योंकि industrial city है, eco-friendly नहीं होगी. So I wanted to bring that in front of them around the theme of love in the times of climate change, and how climate change and love can go hand in hand, as in your love can reflect the changes in the atmosphere, and it could be as a metaphor to how your love life in the modern times, in the Gen Z times changes. So I had a word with them, and this is how we started it.
But was your approach a bit different when it comes to you writing your usual stuff about life and love, and this one on climate change? Was there a different approach?
Honestly, I started in the same way. जो पहला thought आता है आप उस पे grow करते हो. And once I was done with the first draft, we had a meeting with CEW people, and we also had a workshop. So वहां पर फिर हमने चीजों पर ध्यान दिया, वो चीजें जो हम in general लिख देते हैं उस पर हमने थोड़ा research का तड़का लगाया, and tried making it accurate, right, and obviously colloquial, so that people could find it in the most beautiful way and still feel it.
And how are your friends from Jamshedpur reacting to it?
Oh well, half of them are like, तूने हमें पहले क्यों नहीं बताया?
Banega Swasth India podcast will be back after a short break. Watch out for a new Banega Swasth India video podcast, Swasthya Mantra, the first ever public health and hygiene podcast. The podcast is live on Spotify, Apple and YouTube in English and in Hindi. Welcome back to Banega Swasth India podcast.
And in the end, how do you want to take this forward? I mean, how do you see the impact of it in future?
The piece, or like this format?
The piece, your art.
Sure. So I believe, okay, there is this one thing which people keep telling me, that why do you only write about love or hope or life when there's so much wrong all around? There's so many things which people are struggling with. There's a friend of mine, his name is Amandeep Singh. उन्होंने हमसे एक बात कही थी एक दफा कि दुनिया में दो लकीरें हैं, एक सच्चाई की लकीर, एक बुराई की लकीर। और जब जब बुराई की या किसी गलत चीज की लकीर बढ़ते जा रही है तो आप उस लकीर को मिटा नहीं सकते, आपके पास इरेजर नहीं है। आप बस एक कोशिश कर सकते हो कि आप सच्चाई की, अच्छाई की लकीर को उससे बड़ा बनाओ। तो कोशिश बस इतनी है कि we talk about things that make this world a better place. When we talk about love, we talk about friendship. And when I say love, it doesn't mean like a boy girl or a romantic relationship. It means love of all formats. So the idea is to keep writing about love, about life, and trying to collaborate with people like CEEW to see how we can bring all such things to show the practical good side of it. So the idea is to keep spreading love.
Let's talk about the concept. It's not every day that you write poems about climate change, right? What did you think of it when you were pitched this idea?
I personally think it is such a great title, Love in the Times of Climate Change. And it immediately reminds you of, love in the times of cholera. And, so many emotions come to your mind when you think of it. And I love love, Arun. So for me, love can move the world, whether it is love for people, whether it is love for the planet. And when you
Sure.
come, and when you combine these two things, when you start stirring people's emotions with your words, those words eventually translate into actions. So I was really happy when we got the brief and the kind of creative liberty we got with it. And the idea of producing art with a cause, that's always been something very close to my heart. I try to do that even in my love poems. There's always some social aspect. So the fact that I could bring in an environmental aspect to it, I was very pleased to be associated with CEEW and UnErase Poetry.
Okay, but was it a challenge also? Because, climate change can be a very serious topic as well. You can't be wrong with your facts on the kind of reality that we are in. I mean, there's no fiction here. It's absolutely real. So was there any kind of challenge?
Definitely, I think understanding the nuances of climate change and not confusing it just with a local environmental impact of things, that took some time for us to understand as artists. When we came together for this project, which is Love in the Times of Climate Change, we collaborated with CEEW, which is the Council of Environment, Energy and Water. And we had discussions, we had workshops where we discussed this in detail so that when we sit down to write, we have our facts in place.
Right. And how do you see it impacting? I mean, of course, you've written it beautifully. It has impacted me when I was listening to it. But the larger picture, how do you see it? Where do you want to take it? How do you see the future of it?
I think the purpose of being a part of this collaboration, this project, was also to just be able to make the word get to people, make it reach more people. So I think for me, the biggest impact that it could have is if somebody watches this piece and then takes a moment, pauses, and thinks about it. Just feels the empathy for the environment and climate, just the way I felt when I was writing it. I think that would be the biggest impact, because somewhere we put these things in the back burner of our minds because we get so busy with our own lives. But this is such a big part of our lives. So I think that is what I am looking forward to. Just have people talk about this.
And we've been hearing about all these poems about love from centuries, but climate change is absolutely, I would say, it's not new, but it's still relatively new when we compare it with love. Did you take another approach, a special take before you were writing it?
So I wanted to be scientifically accurate. And that is really important when you're working with something as important as climate change. I mean, I didn't want to just pluck things out of, thin air and make them into a love poem. So the council was very particular about this as well. They held workshops with us. They made us understand what is climate change and what isn't. Because sometimes I think us as normal, regular, everyday people think of something as climate change and do not think of something else as climate change, when the reality could be totally opposite. So I wanted to make sure that I get everything scientifically correct. And if you look at the first paragraph of the poem, these are actual predictions by scientists of what could happen in the next 100 years if things are not taken care of. I just wanted to move that emotion using hyperbole and exaggeration and move it into the realm of love and relationships and longing.
So what made you choose this theme, as you're mentioning, that, the future? So how did you think, okay, this is going to be my idea?
So I am a very resilient lover. As most poets are, as Amrita Pritamji was like, "Main tumhe phir milungi," I will meet you again. So I wanted to kind of play upon the idea of that my love for you will never change, and then kind of combine it with the idea that scientists have predicted that everything around us can change, not that it will change, that it can change if things continue to be the same way. And towards the end of the poem is called Agar Tum Saath Ho, and that is such an important title because the poem eventually boils down into the fact that if the lover is there with me, if the lover is there with planet Earth, only then things will remain unchanged. if you are also doing your part, if your actions are also there, yes, as Earth, as the planet, my love will stay resilient. But what are you going to do to make sure that it stays the same? So I thought it was a clever juxtaposition in terms of, the Earth and the Premika. And as I said, nothing better than love to stir people's soul. So
how do you see art impacting causes like these, and how important is it to marry art with causes?
I think it is extremely important. And as you rightly said, historically it has been proven that words and art and culture, these are the things which eventually impact significant moments in history. PM Modi also recently said that things like climate change cannot only be talked about on conference tables. We need to bring it to the dinner tables. And I think that was one thing that I really kept in my mind, that is this poem only going to affect people who are, either lovers of poetry or know something about climate change, or is it going to make a bigger impact than that? So that is something that I wanted to keep in mind. And what's art without a heart, right? At the lack of a better rhyme. So I think it was really important for me to have that social cause of climate change, something which I actually personally do subscribe by as well, in terms of, sustainable choices in my everyday living. So I wanted to kind of make sure that my art has some impact. It is not just art for the sake of entertainment and consumption, that, someone somewhere starts to think about it in a different way. And I do try that with all my poetry, Hindi or English.
Thank you, Alina, Amandeep, Priya, and Helly for joining us on Banega Swasth India. It's indeed a pleasure to host you guys and also listen to this phenomenal art pieces that you guys have created, which is bound to create impact. That's it on the Banega Swasth India podcast this week. If you have comments, queries, or suggestions on the topic we discussed today, or issues you would like us to cover in future, write to us on bsipodcast@ndtv.com. Remember, BSI stands for Banega Swasth India. You can also connect with us on Banega Swasth India handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and continue the conversation through the week. This is Arun Singh, signing off. Stay healthy, stay safe.